Well, I think that would be a really good topic to start off with. Like got off you got off Facebook initially because of the art stuff, right? Like a lot of people don't understand that Facebook owns the rights to use your artwork. That was your initial reason for like, right, logging off.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if their contract has changed since or their terms of service has changed, but yeah, you really need to read those terms of service before you join any of these sites. There's this thing called the orphan law, where if you left an image up for up to 6 months, then they would kind of like own it automatically. So there's a lot of shady language in the terms of service that I wasn't even aware of until after I had already started posting art. So yeah, I started removing stuff and then kind of stopped. I stopped doing social media like, what, 10 years ago? So.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, and Lyra's on here saying that Gmail is one of the worst too. Okay, so fine, you're no longer on that. A lot of it now is really just privacy. But you know, I was kind of debating on getting off of Facebook. You know, after I heard that even Mercola is leaving Facebook, and he's saying that that you know, people don't realize that Facebook's primary product right now is you, the user. You are the product. They take this platform that you're interacting on, and they are making money off of you by tracking all of your hobbies, your habits, your preferences, everything you like. They're tracking your private messages, your friends lists, login locations, and all of that. And then they're selling your data with personal information along. They're selling it to whoever wants access to it, potentially facilitating everything from targeting advertising to fraud. That's pretty much their profit model now. So yeah, they're collecting your information, they're spying on you. That is the downside to using their platform for free. And anyways, so initially Mercola was saying that Mark Zuckerberg assured in an interview that there was no user information that's going to be sold or shared. And it's just the site continues to disregard its users blatantly. At this point, they are just proving his statements to be opposite. They have constantly been caught mishandling user data and lying about all of their data harvesting, which they're doing, which has resulted in a lot of legal problems for the company, yet they still get to run. Why was I banned off of, or not banned, why was I put in Facebook jail this time around? I've been put in Facebook jail about 4 times now. And it's, this last time here was deemed hate speech because I posted up a meme that all the meme said was the Vatican should let priests invade Area 51 so it could be aliens versus predators. And and I know that a lot of people initially found that just really funny, but also true. Like the Vatican has admitted to paying out $4 billion in protecting priests and shuffling around priests, but not and then settling out with families, right? So I was like, okay, whatever, it's a funny meme, I'll post it. And Facebook, you know, won't let me because they're deeming it hate speech. I just feel like these are very fine lines because they got us, you know, the media really got us when they convinced us that the reasons that they need to censor hate speech are for things like the white supremacist groups, the KKK. You know, people are making these kind of statements online that are inciting violence, so they get to deem it hate speech. What are your thoughts on that initially? And should there even be a little bit of censorship when it comes to speech? Because some speech truly is inciting violence. And yeah, so I'll let you go ahead and talk as you draw and work on your art over there.
Well, the initial thing is I guess you first have to ask with anything, like, because you just hear it in the news, hate speech. I mean, it's just a repeated word. They say it with such bravado and like they almost say it like it's just been a thing that everyone should know about. It's like you just woke up and you found yourself in class and it's test day, and then you just have to kind of pretend that you know what everybody is talking about. So then you're just going to repeat the word hate speech. Okay, it's speech that's hateful. Fine, everyone's saying it. I guess I'm gonna ride the train. But they've never actually defined it, and I think that's the main problem. And that's what all these YouTube and Facebook and Instagram platforms are asking for. They're just saying, hey, if you're gonna have this guideline, we need some clear definitions. We need some absolute crystal clear definitions, because otherwise it's just subjective. It's just you can deem anything as hate speech these days. You can say something you don't like about an animal, and oh, it's hateful towards animals. It must be hate speech. So very broad range. Like you were saying earlier, they'll allow weird, near pornographic stuff on some of these platforms, and but again, they have clear definitions for porn. It's kind of weird that they have clear definitions and standards for what could be considered pornographic, and yet when it comes to something as basic as the text you are going to be using, it's non-existent. So they need to clarify that, and they're having a hard time doing that.
And we knew it was going to bite them. We knew it was going to get them, because, well, what are your thoughts then on speech that is actually, in your opinion, hateful, and should that be allowed out there? And what do you think then in that case? Because I feel like we should let these people be seen for what they really are, because then the masses that do have basic critical thinking skills can look at that and say, at least they could use it to teach their kids, like, hey, look, there are people that think this way, but the rest of society is going to see it for what it is. So what are your thoughts then on that? Because when I shared that back then, I shared years ago, when people were, it was during election time, right? When they were like, hate speech, everything was hate speech if you didn't agree with it. And I went on there and I was like, I feel like even the craziest of the crazies should still have their speech. And I was called everything by people I thought were friends, like from bigot to everything. So I'll let you share your opinion on that.
It is a consequence of being a free country, right? And in my opinion, when it comes to people and hateful rhetoric, what you said, let them say it. Of course, you want to know who has those thoughts, but you don't. But it's protected. That's one of the great things about living in this country. People don't seem to realize that freedom of speech is kind of a rare thing on this planet. It's not a right in a lot of places on the world. You can throw a dart on the map of the planet and you'll likely hit the ocean, but if you do hit land, you will likely hit a place that does not have free speech. It's something that we do need to cherish, because it allows us to speak out against the tyranny. It should not be used as a weapon against the populace to pick out the tyrannical within the populace. That doesn't matter. The tyrannical in the leadership matters. And if we don't have that free speech protection, we're not going to be able to go for the people who actually make a difference in the world. But if everybody wants to chase down the closet racists, well, then the only real way to do that too is to allow that speech to go through, so you know exactly what they're thinking. I mean, I would rather know, if I found out that my neighbor had all these this hateful rhetoric, and just through his Facebook account or whatever, and it's not being regulated. Well, that's something that's good to know. Maybe if he tries to invite me to the neighborhood block party, I may not want to attend, because I have that information. So you gotta get that out there. Information is key, and it's yeah, people are going to be hateful, but people are always going to be hateful. You can't regulate hate. I'm not sure. I think didn't we try that with alcohol? I mean, if we can't regulate alcohol, how are we going to regulate what people say? I mean, that just seems like if we can get the alcohol thing down first, then maybe we'll have a shot. But yeah, it's
Right,
ridiculous.
like they've already made it so that, bartenders also are stopping you if they think you've drank too much. Like, it's illegal to get into any kind of vehicle and operate it while intoxicated. They've done so much to try to lessen that, but you still have people that are going to do what they want to do. So just like you have the people that are going to say what they want to say. But I love that you pointed that out, that this free speech and the monitoring should not be on the populace. It should be on those in charge that are acting tyrannical, if ever, right? Right. But even that I wouldn't want to censor for these higher ups, because I want what they're saying to be showcased for all to see. Like,
no, I didn't mean. No, yeah, we don't censor them either. We don't censor anybody. But what I was trying to say is that they are the ones, if they're, see, right now the game is they're trying to get us to regulate ourselves. That way they can get away with a lot more, because the main objective for any, not the main objective for every leader, but if a leader is looking towards full, like a full tyranny, then the one thing you want to control is the speech. That's the first thing that needs to go. The speech is speech is ideas. Speech is concepts. Speech is what allows the public to examine what's going on around them and comment on what's going around them. So if a ruling body wants to start a real tyranny, you got to control the speech first. Because it's hard. It's hard when you get that kind of, like, they learned, they've learned through history. They're paying attention too. If you try to go for that whole, like, police state thing, all you get is rebellion. All you get is resistance and uprisings. So what you do is you turn the populace on each other, and you make the populace fear each other. You make the populace question each other's motives. You turn neighbor against neighbor, and that's part of the your initial strategy. I mean, that's what I would do if I was in that mindset. I'd want to control the speech, because speech is powerful. Speech is the most powerful thing you can give to somebody. And I mean, they get ragged on a lot in history, but there was a time when the religious institutions tried to control speech, because that's how you retain the power. So they've pulled back a lot, and a lot of history has happened since, but it's already it's happened in history. So take it for that lesson. I mean, when that printer was invented, they they kind of lost a lot of credibility, because people were actually able to talk about the ideas. First they got educated, right? So the most important thing of all that was they got educated first, and then they were able to examine the ideas in full and then discuss them. And even back then it was really hard to do that, but they got around it, and now we have this ability. Now they have to deal with a more educated populace, and so they've lost that edge, right? So now the best thing that they can do is contain the speech. So that would be the first thing to go.
Well, they're starting in ways to, like, first of all, they're labeling groups, right? Earlier this year, the World Health Organization deemed, let's say, anti-vaxxers, they deemed us global health threats. So first, they're going to label us a health threat, a hazard, because of, if you look up the definition of an anti-vaxxer, it is really just a parent that is questioning the safety and efficacy of a product that's being forced on them. So I feel like that should be everybody. Like, everybody then, by that definition, should be an anti-vaxxer. And that should have struck most people already to say, hold on, something's up with this. If they're going to just label off these people and now demonize these people for just looking into something, that should have been like a huge red flag already. I mean, all the other signs were to me red flags, but red flag regardless. And then, so naturally the following month, when companies like Pinterest and Etsy, you know, are starting to, you see articles coming out that they are now no longer allowing anti-vaccination, you know, propaganda. Of course, if you're following the news and in your mind you're already saying, well, yeah, these anti-vaxxers are a health threat, you're going to see articles like that and you're going to say, good, they should censor that, without realizing like you're silencing free speech. And meanwhile, on the other end of the coin, they get to talk about it all day long. They get to put that propaganda in our faces all day long. Now, flashing forward to like March, where you had congressmen like Adam Schiff who were writing into companies like Facebook and writing into Zuckerberg to say, you know, you really need to ban this kind of speech. You need to start censoring these pages, like stop mandatory vaccination. And this is just kind of like a trickle down timeline of where we're at right now. So what are we doing? Well, we were all like, okay, we're prepared now. We're getting prepared. They're going to censor us. And they did. They came in, and now you type in vaccines are on your Facebook search and nothing but World Health Organization stuff and CDC stuff pops up. Same thing with YouTube. Even if you're being very, very exact in your in what you're typing in, you're literally typing it in for Vax TV. If you want to see 800 plus stories of vaccine injured children and families that have gone through this, yeah, you can find Vax TV with a couple searches, but there's going to be a warning on YouTube that is going to tell you that, let me just pull up what the warning says so you guys can see it for yourself. If I search Vax TV, I end up on their channel. This is the YouTube warning that everybody gets to see. It's vaccine controversies. It says vaccine hesitancy, a reluctance or refusal to be vaccinated or to have one's children vaccinated is identified by the World Health Organization as one of the top 10 global health threats of 2019. This is where we're at, and this is, so now things are becoming increasingly harder to post up information, to go back to old sources. And obviously we know that Facebook and Instagram are pretty much the same company, so they're both doing this. But you have a lot of the population that thinks that this is okay, this is a good idea that they're doing this because it's for the benefit of the public. And then now, I don't really want to talk too much about the shootings that happened over the weekend because we kind of touched on that already. But this is another thing that I feel like is they're using the whole free speech thing, but they're dubbing it hate speech. We're entering into another funky territory right now, guys, because now they're after conspiracy theorists, whoever they deem is a conspiracy theorist. So for instance, look at all of these things that came out after these shootings, okay, after these false flags. FBI document warns conspiracy theories are a new domestic threat. FBI warns conspiracy theories are domestic terrorism. All of this. Now they're labeling people who want to take a situation and look into it more because they're not buying the narrative that is being sold to them by their bought media that works for the pharmaceutical companies. We're now being labeled domestic terrorists. So now we are spewing hate speech propaganda. We're also domestic terrorists in the land of the free. And I don't know if you saw some of those articles, Jed, on the new, like, if you look into this kind of stuff, you know, they will dub you a conspiracy theorist and that it's as dangerous as terrorism.
It's not a surprise. I mean, it's just, I think it's all part of the process. You know, like I said, it's just the control of information, and that's just one of the stones to go over. Yeah, it's amazing how much people, like, and I think we had to talk about this earlier, like, people vote this stuff in. I mean, we didn't just wake up in a culture that all of a sudden is just getting used to all these changes. This was, these are like opinions that are formed early on. We are brought up in there's something in the education system. We know colleges are very biased towards the left-leaning agendas. I mean, this is not new, but this is what these kids are coming out with, and it's just this is where the next generation is trying to go. I can't stress homeschooling enough, because it is, propaganda machine has worked its way well into the education system, and it's not as patriotic as it used to be. There's this stuff is just, it's all over the place. So yeah, and I'm surprised it's taken them this long. I mean, you'd think with the whole like Snowden and InfoWars thing that they would have kind of clamped down on that, but I guess they have enough stories now to kind of disprove the majority of conspiracy theories versus the ones that have actually borne out some truth. So and again, they control the media, so that's what we get. Yeah, it's I don't want to keep saying it's scary, but these platforms.
It is if they're going to start arresting people and jailing them like they are in Europe, and like they're fining people all over the world. I mean, they're fining people in Canada for speaking out against against the narrative. Yeah,
like I said, Canada has no free. That's one of those places in the world has no free speech. So,
which is sad. Like, but everybody is driven to Canada with this, oh, universal health care. They've got it so good over there in Canada. Everybody,
Yeah, and it's funny because
free speech.
No free speech. And as far as the universal health care is concerned, yeah, it's nice until you get cancer, and then when you get cancer, you're back in the U.S. Like, nobody goes for cancer treatments up there. Nobody goes for anything serious up there. You get basic. I mean, if you want to see a doctor for free for a checkup, that's fine. The moment you find something, that's when the bill starts hitting you. So yeah, I'm not sure what they're talking about when they say healthcare is better up there.
Yeah, well, anyway, I think right now too, with what's going on in America, we do need to be looking at what happened in Europe. Also, look at all of this, all of the censoring, all of the labeling, all of this hate speech nonsense, and them removing platforms, completely deleting what they deem, is what was the word that they used? Wasn't irresponsible, inappropriate. Whatever they deem inappropriate now. And who are the people that get to make this call? Can we talk about that for a second? The people that get to make this call, that are policing this, like, Facebook, they have a whole group of people that are called fact checkers. And if you go up against their fact checkers, I mean, these are kids that, you're right, they're like graduating from these universities that we know are like, these are the people that get to make the call. I'm confused why more woke people didn't apply for the Facebook fact-checking position, by the way, and the public health official positions that are out there. Like, I guess at this point, what are we going to do? Well, with boots on the ground, we got to take this to the street. If you're in Atlanta and you are woke, maybe the CDC is hiring. Maybe go work for the CDC, Well, the inquiries are coming in, and I do hope they keep they keep digging into these companies like Facebook and Instagram, the ones who are who are controlling the narrative right now, shadow banning conservative viewpoints,
only allowing the viewpoints that they want in. I mean, they're going to need to do some kind of check on these companies and properly label them. The fact that they don't, I mean, there's a reason why they don't want to identify what hate speech is, because the moment they do that, people will find a way, because words are amazing and words can be, utilized in so many different forms. The minute they define what exactly hate speech is, the right and the left, I guess, will go out of their way to use the appropriate language to subvert the hate speech standards. So, I mean, I have faith in that. So, but they need to define it, right? So until they define it, it's kind of, I would recommend that people, stay out of there, because it's really one of those, and really think about it, it's one of those things now where it's retroactive, right? There are actors and celebrity types and even regular people who have been tracked back, 5, 8, 10 plus years at things they said before, and are now, their platforms are being investigated because of things they said a long time ago. People have lost their jobs over this. These aren't exactly safe platforms to be on. Especially not when you're known, which is why I still want to retain as much anonymity as possible, because it's not because I'm shy, it's because it's somewhat dangerous if you have the wrong viewpoint, right? And I think that's the thing. Like, how do you know? Like, how can you tell when your viewpoint has gone way too far off the end?
Well, and we got to mention too that, a company like Facebook, they have the right to, just like every company in this country still has the right to refuse service, right? I mean,
right.
We think, unless you're not willing to bake a cake. But it's just these illusions. But so they can technically censor off what they want to censor off, right? I think the part that we're getting to where it gets dangerous is what it's getting to now, which is they get to label whoever they want a conspiracy theorist. Your anti-vaxxer label is now going to be a conspiracy theorist label, because they're going to say, obviously, anti-vaxxers, they're already relating every anti-vaxxer to a flat earther. They're lumping us all into the same group of people and viewpoints, which are all, for them, AKA conspiracy theories. So if now they're looking into conspiracy theories as domestic terrorism, that's the part where it's going to get a little dangerous. I mean, in other words, what I'm trying to say is, forget Facebook, forget Instagram. Like, there are other platforms you can use that aren't going to censor your free speech. But unfortunately, they're just not as popular, right?
Right.
But so they technically do, they have every right to censor off and do what they're doing. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. Again, it does fall back to the terms of service. And if you are not, you see, that's the difference between a publisher and a platform, right? So a publisher has the right to edit out content that they don't want on their site, right?
Yeah.
They can do that. But because of that power, okay, this is the downside of having this power to control whatever narrative you want, like a newspaper, right? A newspaper gets to decide what goes on their front page, on their 8th page. Like randos can't just come on like a regular platform and get a story in there, okay? Because they can control their story. The problem with Facebook, but the downside of that is that having that kind of control opens you up to all the kind of legal ramifications that people can throw on you. So defamation, if you're printing a story that's factually false and attacking someone's character unjustly, well, you can go after them for defamation. You can go after them for breaking whatever private rights you own. If they try to ruin your business, if they try to post fake ads about about you and what you do. So that's the consequence of having that power. Okay, so Facebook, Instagram, all these platforms, they don't have that worry about libel, about people coming after them, because they consider themselves a platform, like an open platform, a public forum, right? And they have clear guidelines. Well, at least they had clear guidelines about what you can and can't post, and as long as you're not going against that, hey, it's an open platform. But the advantage of that is that Facebook and Instagram, you can't go after them legally for what people say on their platform, right? So they can't have it both ways. They can't control their content like a publisher can, and at the same time enjoy the legal, the freedom of any legal problems that can come their way if people post something that other people don't like, or is factually false, or it can be considered defamation. So that's the pickle that they're in right now. And right now they acting like publishers, but they get the advantage of free open platforms. And someone's got to come in and figure that and sort that out. And I hope the purpose of those hearings, those congressional hearings, was to get some kind of further investigations going on onto what exactly these companies can deem as hate speech, or anything like why, or the shadow banning, is that legal? Because that's also for, controlling the algorithm. That was how they were trying to get around the platform, the platform advantages that they were enjoying. They just said, okay, well, we won't take anybody off, but what we'll do is we'll just have this system playing in the back that they picks out the keywords in certain videos, and if there's a word or phrases that we don't like, well, they just go to the bottom of the list. They don't get a spot on the top, because legally they don't guarantee anybody any place when they post a video. They don't guarantee you top spots, so they can just shadow ban forever. And now they got to look into the legalities of that, because is that also a form of control and controlling the public platform? So there's really a lot to kind of consider when it comes to these companies. But honestly, they're huge platforms. It's really the best way to get information out there. No doubt about that. But it's getting kind of dangerous, depending on what viewpoint you have.
It will get dangerous for sure when they can remove, when they can start really infringing on the Second Amendment. I think that's when it's just for sure audio is your free speech.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not sure where to go from here, because right now it just seems like the heads, the big heads are being reviewed right now, and I don't know what kind of legal out that they're going to have this time around. But it's it's just something to kind of follow within the next year. Sadly, it kind of plays into this case of net neutrality a little bit, which I don't also believe in. So if you want governments to start regulating websites, that's also a bad thing. So it's like we just kind of can't have our cake and eat it too in this round. We either have governments step in and actually control what the websites, what these platforms are doing, which is also bad, but at the same time, these platforms aren't giving us an out right now in terms of having a conservative mindset, so that's also bad. So we're kind of this is like the ultimate catch-22 when it comes to this fight. Force free speech, but also against government tyranny, right? Because we kind of need government tyranny to give us our free speech online, but that's like the last thing we want. That's like the last power we want to give to the government when it comes to anything online. Because once you give them that power, then they can go into everybody's website. Then where does it stop for the government? So the question is, do we trust Mark Zuckerberg more, or whoever runs Instagram, whoever runs whatever? I think it's still him. Or do we trust the government more? Because Zuckerberg, eventually, he's going to die, of natural causes. Once a government regulation goes down, it's kind of immortal in a sense. It's got a long shelf life. So it's a tough call to make for me. I wouldn't know what to do. I don't know if he should. I don't know if it should. I don't know if it shouldn't. But
well, it's like you're leaving these decisions in the hands of human beings who are capable of human error. Making mistakes. It's kind of like, yeah, maybe the idea of communism initially sounded great to a lot of people. Like, we should, obviously I'm not a communist or socialist by any means. Like, I think those ideas are insane, but I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the people that were so easily convinced when these ideals were being proposed, to where they could say, yeah, it doesn't matter if somebody works harder than the other person. Like, everybody should just have the same things and equal. But what happens when you take an idea like that? You still have to have a leader who enforces those ideas and has to carry out the that law and the new laws. So what have you ultimately done to yourself in the end? Because we do have a lot of people that are anti-hate speech, but pro letting the government decide what hate speech is, and also pro letting the government just dictate everything that's wrong and right.
Yeah, I think the only feasible path here would be not looking at it from the platform versus the publisher aspect. I think the more reasonable argument here would just be straight up, free speech versus, versus controlling the narrative, in a sense. I think that should be the bigger focus, and I hope it's just kind of like, if they have the discussion, if they're having that discussion right now, I hope it just sticks to that topic and doesn't really stray too far from that.
Yeah, that's a kind of a fat chance with that one, though, because now the problem is not going to be the people who are coming up with these laws to begin with and making that call. It's going to be all of the people around us, the people in society that think that that's a good idea, that think that that is a good direction to be going in, because once again, they will be the first to now be reporting. Those are the people that are doing the reporting. I mean, my platform is already a private platform on Instagram, and there's no way Instagram could have just come into my page. I'm not saying there's no way, I take that back. But, it's not like I'm hashtagging stuff to be on these public forums so that people can come to my page and I can gain following. Like, it's a private page. So it had to have come from in this page, as much as I try to vet people, So it must have been somebody who reported highlights as inappropriate, and Instagram still had to come in to make that final call and delete off highlights. So, what more then? It's like, what more can you do in that case? It's really, they pitted us against each other. When it's never supposed to be us against us, it's always supposed to be us against them. But that's the reality.
It has to be us against
neighbors.
Right. It has to be us against us, because it's just a numbers thing. There's way more of us, right? So if the masses are fighting amongst each other, it's no accident that 100 or 200 plus years ago, 200 plus years of ending slavery, and then of course going through the Jim Crow and all all the voter suppression and all that stuff. We're going through all of this. We've gotten to a point now where it's leaving the race aside, it's pretty peaceable compared to what it used to be. But if they keep the conversation going, the more they bring it up, the more infighting they get. This isn't just and not just that, you know, when people say, oh well, you know, there's always going to be racists, there's always going to be yeah, okay, sure, fine. There's always going to be some crazy fringe group, but how do you frame it? You know, how are you saying if you're because right now they're trying to sell the idea. Okay, this is the narrative is trying to sell the idea that the whole country is racist. You know, and it's gotten to the point where people in other countries are also accepting this narrative. So that's which is kind of bad. You know, if you actually look at the whole history of slavery and you look at what Europe and what people had to do, what had to sacrifice to get rid of these barbaric institutions, you know, it's disheartening to now think that all those lives, all that blood and flesh wasted for a narrative that's still running strong as if it were still going on, you know, like it was 50 years ago. So but that's a whole other topic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, but it's part of the infighting. It's part of what gets these people to kind of continue this campaign of control, this campaign of you know, making people, you know, forcing people to look the other way, and you know, keeping this game up. It's kind of tragic.
And you know, I hate to bring up the obvious in this, but the more that they're silencing whatever they're deeming the hate speech, right, or the propaganda, the more people are looking into it. Like, I can't tell you how many people have messaged me saying they really didn't give a crap about the vaccine topic until they started seeing that they were banning pages that talk about it. You know, like, it's forcing people to look into things. It's like these, I don't think that they're ever going to get it. You know, the more you're going to silence an entire topic, people are going to now get curious. It's like telling somebody they're not allowed to do something, telling a kid you can't go there. Like, here's this entire box you're allowed to play in. You're not allowed on that part of the box, though. Like, where does the kid naturally want to go?
Yeah.
So that's, for me, that's just really sad that whatever. That's kind of what it took for some people to wake up. I guess it's better late than never. But yeah, it's ultimately just going to make people want to look up that stuff more. Like these books that used to be just readily available, they're now banning them off Amazon. Or the fact that you can't stream certain documentaries anymore. It's now making people really want to go source them. And a lot of people who have these documentaries at home, they're having like viewing parties in their houses. They're having in-home viewing parties. They're gathering whatever neighbors and friends to come and check out the documentary. So now it's making people really tribe up. Whereas before, you know, it wasn't really a problem for them. And same with the censoring. What's it doing now? It's making people leave their homes. It's making people get out there in the public. And, oh man, that's way too big. I'm not gonna be able to bring that in. Our generator just arrived. I can't carry that in.
Oh man.
I know. It's all of our like supplies. It's like in the nick of time got our freaking generator. Anyway, but yeah, it's forcing us to now get out there, whereas before we were just comfy cozy on our couches, you know. So that's where all the food is. What are you? Wait, I'm sorry, I'm reading some of these comments. Are you able to see the comments on your end, Jed?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
It stops scrolling every now and then, so I have to like scroll up just to kind of catch up. So.
Check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you know, I feel like to that idea, why is it starting to feel like a parenting kind of, like everyone is trying to parent everybody else kind of deal. You know, when you're raising kids and you don't like something on TV, right? You don't like a show that they're watching because there's some kind of language in the show that you deem inappropriate for for a child, right? You say, okay, children should not watch this show for so and so reason, because these, whether the topic is too sensitive or it's too adult for them to understand, it might be too confusing. Okay, whatever. It's just, so whatever reason you come up with, because at the end of the day, the only reason is you just don't want to talk to them about it. You shelter them, right? You keep them from that idea, because number one, it keeps you from having to explain the idea, because it might be uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
And number two, you just, this weird appropriate time. There's an appropriate time for this, appropriate time for that, but it's all arbitrary, right? Because they're either going to learn it from you, or they're going to learn it in school, or they're going to learn it somewhere. You can't shield people from these things.
Yeah.
But is that what society's turned into now? It's just a bunch of parents running around on the internet saying, you can't say this, you can't watch that, you can't do this because you're not old enough, or you're not smart enough, or you're not it's not appropriate for you. It's just, I just feel like someone keeps trying to hold my hand and pull me away from things when I'm just doing what human beings were naturally programmed to do, like be curious. One of the founding things that separates us from the animals, we're just not following the herd. We are curious about human things, human behavior, human ideas.
Yeah.
And
well, there is a human herd. There's a human herd, and they are
oh yeah,
people.
They've become that. Yes, of course they've accepted that mentality, because and I can't. It's hard to ultimately blame them, because we are still. That is one of the things that we're fighting against. That tribalism that's always ingrained in us, and that is part of that tribalist behavior. Following those who've kind of come before you, following those who seem to know where the right way to go is, because it's natural. It's a natural thing to do. But there are some people who can see the cliffs coming up, or can see the wild animals in the bush, and every now and then gotta pipe up and say something about it. But the tribe just generally doesn't like that, because they had a plan, and they want to go with the plan. And here's some uppity troublemaker trying to shift them away from their goals. So that's part of it. And I feel like, yeah, why is it, man, just talked to my wife the other day, and all the, it was such a weird conversation for me. And I really had to think about it. I had kind of to break the words apart, because she was talking about what she wasn't allowed to say at work. Mm-hmm. Right? And it was such a, and we know the topics, right? Because I'm not gonna hold it against her, because obviously she wants to keep her job, and that's sad that this is what you have to do to keep your job. The HR department has become the new, censoring terror when it comes to the workplace, right? They are the Facebook equivalent of that. So you don't want to mess with HR. I mean, even managers are afraid of HR and all the nonsense they can bring to the table. But she was just talking about things that she could not talk about at work, like, and then you kind of break that idea down. It's like, wow, is this a school, or is this a job? Are you surrounded by adults, or are you surrounded by children? Children should be protected from ideas. I thought that was the case. I thought that was what, and not necessarily that I agree with that, by the way, but I thought that was normally accepted in society, that kids need to be protected from certain ideas. Why are we shielding adults from ideas?
Well, because it's all in the programming. It's the ideas that are presented to you are the ideas that only the government thinks are acceptable to give to you, which is why they feel like it's in their power and in your child's best interest for them to teach your child about sex in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th, and the topics, as you've seen what the new sex ed curriculum looks like nowadays. It's just shocking, to say the least, but they think that that's their place. And a reason why I would love to just tune out, because I don't think that we were as human beings designed to process and have to take in this much information and have to be monitored like this by everybody around us and judged by this many people, along with all the scrolling and like, do you really need to see that and go through all those emotions? I feel like it's very not normal. But the reason why it's hard, I know Lyra was on here and she said that we need to be able to disconnect from the machine. While I agree with that completely, it also, if many of us who are woke in this just disconnect and go off and live in, you know, wherever our wonderland, it's only going to be wonderland for like a decade or two before somebody comes knocking at our door, you know, demanding or telling us that we are now going to be jailed for, who knows, maybe what you told your kids and what your kids repeated in the public. Forget public school, but what was repeated. And you're going to go, what are you talking about? And they're going to say, well, a decade ago, there was this law that passed. Where have you been? That we now have the right to put you in prison for saying things like this. You know, that's, I feel like, where it's like you want to tune out so badly. Like I want to just turn everything off all the time so badly. But a part of me also feels like I need to be staying up to date on what madness is going on in the world right now.
Yeah, you know, you want to be the lighthouse that's kind of, you know, shedding a little bit of direction along the way, but you also need to be at that front line. You know, you need to kind of stand against those crashing tides at the same time. But it is such a weird notion now. I mean, not 15 years ago, that's not a lot. I mean, maybe even less. But I mean, when I was in school, I remember when I was in high school, and you know, we'd go home, and Dad and Mom would talk about maybe a topic that's a little risque, maybe say a joke that's not appropriate, age appropriate, and then they would tell us, "Don't say that in school; you'll get in trouble." Right? That was the whole thing. Like, don't repeat any of this in school. Okay.
Wait, Jed, hold on, hold that thought. I have to stop this live because it's going to boot us off, and I'm going to want to try to save it. So jump back on in like another minute.
Okay.
Can you do that?
Yeah, I'll see you in a minute.
Jump back on in a minute. Bye.
All right, bye.
Okay. All right. Back on. There we go. Jed's on again. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I know it's such a pain. We have to do things in this way, and then I try to save stuff. And all right. I see the back of your chair, Jed.
Yeah, I just got to reset the screen.
Okay. You're back on. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, it's getting good too, and I didn't want to just get like stopped. So, well, it looks like your project is almost done.
Well, it's just the shading, but yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I kind of like that idea. I think that would make for a really good YouTube channel, because then you don't have to show your face. It could just be what you're drawing and working on, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to cut off on your last point if you wanted to jump back onto that. Yeah,
so we were saying, you know, we tell our kid, or Dad and Mom told us not to repeat things in school because we'd get in trouble with the teachers, right? It just like, we'd either get detention for saying a dirty word or whatever the case may be. But nowadays, it's it's shifted quite a bit. Now it's like, don't repeat this in school. Mom and Dad could go to jail for a hate crime, kind of thing, or for hate.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's that, yeah, and like you were saying earlier, they are forcing people to tribe up in a sense, and get a little bit more creative about how to pass information along to their kids.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember this song. I think it was by Mike and the Mechanics, Silent Running. Actually, a pretty good, like the more I listen to it today, the more I realize like, wow, we're kind of living in that time. It's kind of, I don't know exactly what the song was about, but I think it was trying to, 'cause I'm just going by the words, and they were trying to like say, you know, just teach your children quietly, you know, about what's going on in the world. You know,
Yeah.
kind of like keep all that information close to heart. Just don't let anybody in that you're unaware. You know, things, messages like that. And yeah, it's like, well, you know, when you first listen to it, it's like, man, it's a really, really paranoid person singing this song. But the more you understand about how fast things can turn into a tyranny,
Yeah.
especially when they're trying to, you know, like today, trying to control the language, that should be the first big red flag to any tyrannical takeover. That's number one. That's the first thing. Step one. So yeah, we're kind of seeing that slowly unfold right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're having people in Congress calling for, jailing those that make fun of people in Congress. I mean, as laughable as that notion is, the fact that they're even proposing it, like standing up in front of a podium, in front of a microphone with a bunch of news reporters, and talking about how that's a good idea, is kind of scary. And we're in generation right now. You have comedians apologizing during their skits, okay? Meaning they're in a room on a stage, lights on them, they've got the microphone, and they have the nerve before telling jokes to say things like, this might offend some of you, or sorry, this is gonna, it's like, that's not comedy anymore. Comedians apologizing. I mean, this is where we're at because of this hate speech thing. I don't know if you saw the new Joe Coy thing on Netflix. You should. It's pretty funny. Because he gets into like all the different ways to tell like what kind of Asian somebody is, and it's really, really funny. But he has some jokes on there where you had people in the audience like gasping, and he had to tell his audience to go F themselves because. But it's like, why would a comedian even have to resort to that? Like, why do they even have to? But that's kind of where we're at. And if you're looking up all of the, well, what they deem as news, right? I'm talking articles and sites from like Huffington Post and stuff like that. They are making all these cases online for why we need to censor hate speech, why that's a good idea. They need to purge. They're saying like feminists. First of all, I know that that's like one of your favorite topics, but feminists need to purge Facebook of misogyny. They need to remove any ads that are controversial, quote unquote controversial, and that is a good thing. They said that the French are doing it, and they're saying that that's a good thing. That the French are doing it. By the way, you're not allowed to have like a gun in France. They're going after your knives too. But the French government several years ago objected to the hashtag Un Bon Juif. It's like UNBONJUIF, which was intended to inspire hateful riffs on the themes, on certain themes, right? So anything that seemed for anti-Semitism, and they got to report people. You get to report people, and then they get to go to jail. And you have news companies in America that are saying, good. They're saying, yeah, good. That's a good thing. And anyways, if you're new to the live right now, we're trying to talk about why that is a bad thing, while still not being bigots and racists, because you can be for freedom of speech completely, no matter what the speech is, and surprise, surprise, not be a bigot. And which I love that a lot of these articles, you'll see on their comments that came in, right? Because they're talking about the censoring of free speech and then and hate speech. And then when you look to the comments section, it'll say comments have been closed.
Yeah.
And you're going, my gosh, this is seriously just Twilight Zone type of stuff. Okay, so then let's talk a bit then how when you mentioned that there are certain things that children should be censored from. I know what you're talking about, but if you want to elaborate on that a little further, like what should children be censored from, and who should be in charge of that censorship, right? The parent?
Remind me, because this was, I think we talked about this like 3 weeks ago.
No. Earlier, before I cut you off on this live, from the first live, you were talking about how it should be children that are the ones censored from certain information out there, right? Like children shouldn't have access to pornography on the internet.
Okay, so I'm yeah, and I did put that little I did look at a little segue where it was like I'm a bit extreme when it comes to censorship on kids, and not because I'm just irresponsible. I don't want to talk about subjects, or because I love to talk. I love to talk, and I want to be open with my kid with everything. I am not, and this belief of mine, which is, I'll just state it now, but don't freak out right away. I don't think kids should be censored from anything these days. I don't think anything is off topic. I think everything is on the table right now, and not because I'm an insane person, but because I am waking up to the reality that in our pockets we have the entire world at our fingertips. We live in an age where we can no longer control the information like we could control it in the 50s, and it was easy back then because, there were very, very, very few kids who actually went to libraries, actually did independent research on their own. Nowadays, we live in such a time when information is passed down the chain, and when they hear, because they'll hear it from somewhere, they'll either hear it from another kid who's been online, who's been on the internets, or they're going to hear it from an adult in a side chat, and then they're now going to have the ability, whether you can control them or not, because they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. I don't plan on raising a dumb kid, and I don't think anybody should have those aspirations either.
Yeah,
but they will find information that, like, they will find your porn stash. Okay, they will dig and they will find this stuff, and we won't understand. We won't always know how and when. So because of today's age, because of how easy it is for kids to get access to information, everything's on the table, and it's a product of the time, and not the sense that, oh, we need to be different parents because it's going to make the world a better place. Like, no, we just need to kind of adapt to how information is passed along these days. And that is that's my personal belief.
Yeah.
I know everybody else has their own take on that, and that's fine.
Look,
but I'm go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'll let you finish your thought. My bad.
Yeah, I was just going to end with, I'm just of the mindset where I want to be mentally prepared instead of surprised when they come up with with what they've discovered, right? Sometimes they go, oh, Mom, I learned about this thing or this body part. I don't want to sit there like deer in headlights, like, and then try to figure out what to do in the moment. I need to have a clear perception of what to do, and the perception for me is, well, if they found out about it, the information's already out there. Can't put that, you can't put the rabbit back in the hat, so tell them about it. Just be as honest as you can, without freaking them out, obviously, but just be as honest as you can about the subject, and kind of like treat them a little bit like adults. I mean, these are tiny adults that you're raising, and how you treat the information when they bring it up to you is how they're going to either respect or disavow any new information that they learn later on.
I love that you bring that up, because I have to admit that my views did kind of change throughout the years with the more information that is out there, and the younger these kids are in getting the World Wide Web in their fingertips. Back then, if a kid had a phone, they had a flip phone or they had a pager, or like the kids that we were going to school with. So yeah, there was a lot of information that we didn't really need to look into until we were much older. Versus now, there are things I don't want to have to talk with my daughter about. You know Amelia more than anybody, and she questions everything to begin with. So I already knew when she was 4 or 5 years old that this was going to be kind of rough. But take, for instance, why do you need to talk to your kids now about STDs and HPV? And you have to talk to them about that stuff now at the age of 9. Why? Because even if you are not giving them the HPV vaccine, even if you're keeping them as far away from that as possible, their friends are going to be offered this. Their classmates are going to be offered this. And if it's not their classmates, neighbors, other kids that they're going to meet just out in public. And so these other kids are under the impression that, well, my parents did this for me because they love me and they want to protect me. So your kid is now going to say, well, does my mom not love me and not want to protect me from these diseases that are out there? So it's like you have to have these talks with your kids, but then it makes it uncomfortable because now I got to talk to my kid about the sexual immorality in this culture that she has to be growing up in, and why we're in a place where we have 200 strains of HPV and 500 strains of gonorrhea, and why that is. And it makes it uncomfortable, but I like that you brought that up. I would rather she get the information from me and Jeff than me being in a point where I'm like, I don't want to talk to my kids about these kind of things. They're not ready. They're not of age to hear these kind of things. So they're going to go and get their information from other sources.
Exactly.
And it sucks. It's just, there really is not much of a solution, but it really sucks. Why do I have to talk to my kid about this stuff? I talked to Amelia. You were there. You were around when she was only 6 years old and she came off the school bus because some kid on the bus had a smartphone and all they did was Google up the word kiss. Well, KISS, which that kid just learned how to spell that week. When you click that into your World Wide Web, because you got these parents that they don't care, they're not blocking their kids' phones. So now you have a bunch of kids in elementary school looking up images under the word kiss on Google. And many of you know what other kind of images pop up, right? So it's kind of like a problem that obviously my 6-year-old knew what kissing was, but there were other things that popped up on there, like other images that were more than kissing, that now all of these 6-year-olds are looking at and now having to what is going on? What is all of that? And what does that do? It's kind of like, even if you're homeschooling your kid, are you going to shelter your kid from just all the other kids out there, playing with other kids? Same notion. It's not just public school where they can get their information from. Even kids that are being homeschooled are going to be exposed to this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Look, when I was a kid, middle school, not even eighth grade. I think I was still in sixth grade. All right. So, and this is probably something you don't even know about, Tulsa, but I'm going to be a little bit candid today. When I was back in middle school, there was no internet. Not the internet we have today. Not where it's just, we didn't even have dial-up yet. We had no access to that material. All right. But at 6th grade, I was able to view porn. I had access to porn. All right. So, and that was back then. So I can't even imagine how much easier and possibly younger kids are going to get into this stuff today. All right. So if I can discover porn at 6th grade in the 90s, like early 90s, 1993, 1994, 20 years later, this day and age, with kids now running around with smartphones in school, it's going to be nothing for them to run into that stuff, So that is, again, kind of like, I kind of think back to not thinking back to what I've seen, but just kind of thinking back to that idea where if it was that easy and available back then, and I had no outlet to talk about it, I can't imagine what it'd be like if I had to send my kid to a public school today, having to deal with you know, with that easy access we have right now. So
yeah, and what
just
it's doing to these kids' brains, right? Like it's definitely, Jeff and I did a talk on it last week, with just what it is doing to the brains of these kids, especially these young boys. But so, yeah, I guess you'd have to have those uncomfortable conversations sooner than later, unfortunately, because this is the society that our kids have to be brought up in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which just sucks. Which just sucks. It's almost like their innocence just gets stolen from them so much sooner nowadays. You know, we got to be kids a lot longer when we were kids.
The thing is, you want to give them that information, you know, because it protects their innocence. If you don't give them the information, then they stand a chance to lose their real innocence, you know, because learning something versus actually losing something in terms of, you know, virginity or, you know, having good first relationships and, you know, good introductions to the world of dating and courtship, like that can be lost just as easily if this information isn't given in a respectful way, or in a timely manner. And not so much the age has nothing to do with it anymore. It's just how it's just the timing of everything. You know, so maybe that'll change. Maybe it'll get worse in the future. Maybe it'll get better in the future. Maybe internet control will be a little bit easier to regulate within the family. Maybe more kids will get homeschooled, and then we'll see like a dialing back of all this public school nonsense. But you know, right now we kind of just have to take and adapt to the time that we're living in, not to the time that we wish it was in a way.
Yeah, which many people are striving for. They're trying, you know, the people are waking up suddenly. The same people that had the longing for like the big house in the gated communities with the nice things are longing for like just being left alone in like the mountains somewhere, where they can just try to enjoy life as best as they can. But yeah, if you're tuning in just now, we're talking about freedom of speech, hate speech, why censoring any speech, whether it's hateful or not, is wrong to begin with, because you're leaving the choice of what is right speech and like the good stuff in the hands of people who are very tyrannical. Like they get to make the call on what's good for your kids to listen to or not. And they're ultimately, what it is really is just, it's one more infringement on just parenting to begin with. It's one more thing where they convince you that you have all these rights, right? My body, my choice. You have all these rights, literally until the baby takes its first breath out of your body. Then suddenly you don't have rights to this kid. Just kidding. You were the entire time really just glorified guardian. And that's what you will be, because the state now gets the say for what your kids get to hear, what they get to think, all of it, you know. I heard, getting to where like who you're drawing over there. Oh man, the alien himself. That would be considered hate speech to some people. Here I am sitting back. I just think that was just a joke.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were making a segue to the Area 51 invasion.
No. Yeah, really. That's why they don't want us invading Area 51. All those lizards. Anyway, I didn't mean to jump in on that, but yeah, there's no way to avoid it, and what's coming right now for our kids. So we have to be the ones that have these uncomfortable conversations with them. But kids can handle this kind of information. I think we don't give kids enough credit, right? They can really take on this kind of information and absorb it and not be as like twisted as we are, because
they're just like us. They're just smaller. They will adapt if they need to. I mean, you know, when the chips are down, if we're ever like in real survival mode, you're gonna have to teach your kids to do things that it's unimaginable right now. But there are kids in the world who've had to learn how to survive in much more primal ways than the kids in this country are used to. So, you know, there are kids out there who, you know, at the earliest ages, 4 or 5, who kind of know how to gather water from the streams, and they kind of like go off by themselves, set traps, clean out the traps, skin animals, you know, do what they need to do, smoke meat. Kids, they'll have to figure it out, because if that's what it's going to take for the family unit to survive, you know, the kids are going to, you know, are going to be a part of that.
Oh, and it's, but you know, you did bring up a good point. You were visiting the other day, and the kids, as you know, have been watching a lot of those Survivor shows. They're watching a lot of these Primal Survivor, and you know, like the I Shouldn't Be Alive type of shows, and they're kind of, it's not so much that they're scary shows for kids to watch. Like Sebastian, he's 6, and he can look at these episodes and he can say, well, there's a camera guy right next to him, right, Mom? Or there's somebody with him on the, and I'm going, not all these episodes. Some of these episodes, these guys are like, the helicopter flies away, they take the final drone shot, and then the person's left with just their 2 cameras. But you brought up a pretty good point where you were saying that, look, if all of civilization just goes kaput, these are the people that will continue on the human race, the people that are living in the mountains, that know how to work the land. Because civilization, with all of our technology and all of our comforts, we're not really going to make it. Like, we're not really going to make it out there. And a part of me, this sounds terrible, but some part of me, I'm like, do I even want to live in a world where there's no air conditioning? I don't know. Do I have it in me? You know, I like freaked out the other day with just like the grasshoppers. I'm like embarrassed to even admit this stuff. Yes, no, I can't say that. I gotta say it out loud. I will survive. I will be fine. But then I look at what real survivors look like out there. The guys who are like pulling the frogs and drinking the water from these frogs that store water in their bodies. I'm going, yeah, that'd probably be the day in the desert that I died.
Yeah, jeez.
But it will.
Yeah, there are a lot of theories out there. Yeah, there's a lot of theories out there that you know, that say, you know, if they're, you know, what happened to societies before. And yeah, that's one of the prevailing theories, is that if we ever got to that point and we had a major reset, you know, like a comet or an ice age, then yeah, it would have been the smaller indigenous tribes, like the tribe, you know, the kind of tribes that exist in Australia and have existed alongside modern people for, you know, thousands of years.
Yeah, they're still there.
They might feel the earth shake a little bit. The skies might go black for a little bit for them, but next day is just gonna be another day for them, you know. Whereas meantime, in the big cities, it's utter chaos and you know, civil unrest, because people are looting and rioting and you know, trying to take as much as they can before the ultimate collapse. So
yeah, they'll be the ones. I mean, just like the Igorots, they call them, the ones in the jungle, those guys in the jungle, like those people, like the Japanese soldiers that were, you know, 3 decades after the war had already ended, were still living in the jungle, waiting to be picked up, thinking that they won the war, but they were just waiting on their fellow. They were like just having to live in the jungle.
yeah.
So, okay. Well, I want to end this